Welcome to another video on advanced computer network, and in this video we will introduce some terminologies associated with wireless network. So let's begin the discussion. The first terminology that we are going to discuss is your mobile. So this mobile means moving from one location to other location. So two terms associated with this mobile facility. One is called user mobility and the second one is called your device portability. Okay. So what do you mean by a user mobility? It refers to a user who has access to the same or similar telecommunication service at different places. So that means if a user moves from one place, let's say this is a place where the person stay and he has moved to a other place and still the service follows him, then we say that the service supports your user mobility, is not it? Similarly, if the device associated with that person, let's say your mobile phone system, in a mobile phone system, if your mobile phone is actually moving from one place to another place and still you are getting the services provided by your telephone company, then we can say your telephone company provides your device portability. Okay, so with device portability, the communication device moves with or without the user. Okay, it may move with the user or it may not move with the user, but the service still continued in your device. Okay, so these are the two terms associated with your mobile communication. Similarly, another word that is associated with your mobile communication is called your wireless. So in the wireless mode, there will be no wire. That means we can say the communication is happened through air, and this term wireless is actually used with respect to a device. And we can say wireless means it is a way of accessing a network, is actually referred to as your wireless. Okay, so after identifying these two terms, we are slightly entering towards the mobile communication network. So go on discussion. So in general, whenever we are talking about a device, a communicating device, we generally classify or we generally have means that device have some characteristics, and the characteristics has been explained over here, and I have given one example to explain the characteristics of that device. So the first characteristics will be a device can be fixed and wired. So when you consider a desktop computer, in general the desktop computers are fixed devices, and it will be connected through a wire for communication purpose. Similarly, a device can be mobile and wired. So I'm referring to a laptop. You know that whenever we are using a laptop, we are just taking that laptop from one place to another place, and wherever we get the wired connection, we are trying to means whenever we are trying to access the internet or we are trying to communicate, send a mail, we prefer a wired connection with the laptop instead of wireless. Okay. Similarly, another device which is called fixed or wireless, which is exactly not possible. Means the device which is fixed, and even we don't require where to access them. So we can say this is just a mode. That means we can say it is a mode used for installing a network. Okay, and finally, that is called the mobile and wireless. And while we are talking about mobile and wireless, it is exactly referring to the smartphone. Means today's smartphone, we are using our smartphone, we are moving from one place to another place, and we don't require anywhere to connect to a network. So that is why smartphone is coming under this mobile and wireless technology, and this is the fourth characteristics of a communication device. Now that we understand what are the different type of devices and what is the terms associated with mobile communication, we will try to identify the elements that forms a wireless network. So you can see the figure from here. you will identify that some of the components which are basically forms a wireless network, and those are represented over here. So one is called your wireless access point, which is shown over here. This is a wireless access point. In this network there is a wireless access point, and in this network there is a wireless access point. Similarly here also. Okay, so this access point is actually providing the facility for communicating, means connecting the wireless host to the network. So the devices which are connected to this access point through wireless mode are called wireless hosts. And sometimes, as we know that the wireless hosts are mobile in nature, that means they can they can move from one place to another place. So that is why whenever a wireless node which is in moving condition are sometimes called wireless host in motion. Okay, and the sky color circles which are shown over here referring to the coverage area. Remember, whenever you are connecting a access point, it has some coverage area. No access point in this today's scenario, no access point exists which will provide a huge capacity, infinity amount of coverage area. Okay, so everyone is providing a limited range. So whenever a wireless host coming to that range, it is actually get connected to that access point. Okay, so mainly all these components makes a wireless network. We will discuss one by one in a detailed manner. So let's begin. So the first one is called your wireless host, and we can say host are end system devices that run applications. So we can refer a laptop, a tablet, a smartphone or a desktop computer as a wireless host. You may ask, sir, why you have included this desktop computer as a wireless host? Because nowadays desktop computers are coming with Wi-Fi facility as well. So that is why I have included the desktop computer over here. Okay. So the next term that is we have already shown in the figure is called the wireless link. So the wireless link is nothing but a host connect to a base station. So what is a base station, that I am going to discuss in the next slide. So a host connect to a base station or to another wireless host through a wireless communication link. So whenever you are trying to send information from one device to other device, you need a communication link among them. So in case of a mobile communication, that link is actually a wireless link. So different wireless link technology have different transmission rate and can transmit over different distances. Okay, so there will be actually several technology has already been used by several people, and the technology, that wireless link technologies, are something like this, which is shown over here in this figure. And every wireless link has means we can say it has different transmission rate, because every wireless link has to have some transmission rate, means at what speed you can transmit the data. And it also explain means it has a coverage area that we have already discussed. That means you can transmit over different distances, so which is shown over here. The distance is shown on the x-axis, and that speed is actually represented in the y-axis. And these are the wireless link technologies like 3G, 2G, CDMA, GSM, 802.11, 4G. So these are actually the different wireless link technologies which are used for transferring the data and their range and their speed. Okay, and in wireless communication we are supposed to explain all these technology in a separate videos. So stay tuned for the videos to come for each individual technology. Well, so lastly we should know about this base station. But in the base station, what will happen? A base station is responsible for sending and receiving data and to and from the wireless host that is associated with that base station. Okay, so base station is actually, we can say, uh, giving the facility of sending and receiving the data, and the base station is also responsible for coordinating the transmission of multiple wireless hosts with which it is associated. As we know that a base station generally coordinating with several devices, so that is why the responsibility of the base station is also coordinating the transmission between these multiple devices. When we say a wireless host is associated with a base station, we mean that the host is within the wireless communication distance of the base station, and the host uses the base station to relay data between it and the larger network. Okay, so this is the meaning of how the host is associated with a base station. Okay, so you can take the example of base station as your cell towers or any access point which is connected in your organization maybe. So cell tower in a cellular network is acting as a base station through which the telephone communication takes place. And while you are inside your organization, you might have seen several access point which is providing the facility of 802.11 wireless LAN connection. And what is that 802.11 wireless LAN connection, that we are going to discuss the detail. But for the timing, you just try to understand that there will be an access point through which your device gets communicated with other devices. So that is actually referring to a base station. Okay. Then finally, another 2 points that I want to discuss over here is, one is called your infrastructure mode, and the second one is called your ad hoc network. Okay, so what does it mean? When your host, let me read this point. Host associated with a base station are often referred to as operating in infrastructure mode. So you can say that whenever your device is actually connected to a base station, that means we can say that your device is actually operating in infrastructure mode, since all the traditional network services like address assignment and routing are provided by the network to which a host is connected via the base station. Okay, so you can think something like this. Whenever a mobile company trying to provide you a service, he is going to put some base stations at different, or we can say mobile towers at different location, and your mobile phone gets connected to that tower, and that tower communication is actually nothing but it is called the infrastructure. Okay, but that is not the only way you can communicate between two devices. There may be another way you can communicate, that is called ad hoc network. We will discuss this two mode in a detailed manner in some other classes as well, but for the completeness we need to understand this two term. Okay, so in ad hoc network what will happen, there will be no infrastructure kind of thing is needed. In general, what will happen, the wireless host have no such infrastructure with which it to connect. In the absence of the such infrastructure, the host themselves must provide for services such as routing, address assignment, DNS like name translation and more. So you can take an example of Bluetooth connection. Okay, so in case of a Bluetooth connection, what will happen? Your device is actually connected with other device, and you don't require any infrastructure for that. Your device might be acting as a sender, or you might be acting as a receiver at that moment. If there are several devices connecting through Bluetooth, also that forms a network. So at that moment of time you don't require any infrastructure for that. Okay, so this is the two term which is associated with your wireless network. Another thing that you need to understand is called the handoff. So handoff means whenever your device is moving from one place to another place, whether your service will be terminated immediately and it will be reconnected, or any other technology is available through which your mobile is still connected with the network. That is the process of transferring this concept is actually called handoff. Okay, You will be reading more about handoff in several lectures. So some challenging questions we need to address over here. If a host can move, how does one find the mobile host current location in the network so that the data can be forwarded to that mobile host? Okay, similarly, another question over here, how is addressing performed given that a host can be in one of many possible locations? And the last one that you need to think about is, if the host moving during a TCP connection or a phone call, how is data routed so that the connection continues uninterrupted? So you just think about these questions, because this is the introduction class about your wireless network. We are going to answer all these questions in subsequent lectures. Okay. Finally, I would like to introduce a simplified reference model. So what is the objective of showing this reference model is to tell you that we are about to discuss different kind of wireless networks, means wireless services. So that is why we will follow a simple reference model, through which I'll explain different technologies. So that is why this reference model, understanding the reference model is mandatory. Okay. So in this reference model, there are two devices involved who is actually communicating with each other. I have taken two devices, which is one is wireless and another is wired. A computer or a desktop computer is generally a wired connection, and a PDA, I have taken this one as your wireless device. Okay. Now they are trying to communicate through a base station. Maybe in general, a base station is actually have two different parts. One is called a radio transceiver, and second one is a internetworking device. So both these forms a base station. Actually both this thing will refer to as a base station, right? And finally, I need to show you that whenever you are thinking about the internet networking unit, it will be providing you the wired connection between the radio transceiver and a computer, and there will be a wireless communication between PD and the radio transceiver. As you know, this is the sender, means there are two devices wanted to communicate with each other, PD and a computer. They both working upon all the 5 layer of your TCP/IP, but the middle layers, or we can say the intermediate devices, which is nothing but the base station, is actually working on 3 layer, that is physical data link and network layer. Okay. And the connection between this PDA and your base station will be a radio medium, that means we can say wireless medium, and from the internet networking device to the desktop computer, we are going to use any physical medium for that, or wired medium we can say. Okay, so the description of this figure is given in this 2 slide. So as I have already told you, the figure contains two things. One is called your personal digital assistant, PDA, and which is provide an example of a wireless and portable device. The PDA communicate with a base station. As I have already shown you, that PDA is actually communicating with the base station. So what is a base station? Base station has two parts. One is called your radio transmitter, which is acting as a sender and receiver, and an internetworking unit connecting the wireless link with the fixed link. Okay, so you can see here, this is the this part is the wireless link, and this internetworking unit will be connecting with the wired link. This is the wired link, this is the wireless link. So he is acting as the intermediary between them. Similarly, a communication partner of PDA is a conventional computer. As I have already told you, that this is the conventional partner through which the PDA is trying to communicate. In the last slide, again I am explaining the figure itself. Underneath each network element, so here network element can be considered as PDA, computer, or base station, shown the protocol stack. So I have already shown you the protocol stack. This is the protocol stack, which is shown just below all these internetworking devices. And finally, the end systems, here the end system refers to the PDA, and the computer needs your full protocol stack, and but the intermediate system, which is nothing but your internet working unit and your base station, or maybe, and that do not necessarily need all the layers. Okay, so this is the generally called the simplified reference model. Following this reference model, we are going to explain all the terminology, or means all the technologies associated with wireless communication in the subsequent videos. Okay, so that's all for the today's lecture. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.